Okay, so now we're starting to build a flow and an understanding of how money works. And so this is the MoneySMARTS flow of that money. So building from the banking structure, we can now start to see how that then delivers into the goods and services that we're looking to operate. So remember, we have our income coming in over here. And that's the money in. And then we have the money going out over here. So what's actually happening here is we can see that that money is then going through what we call the living and lifestyle debit card account. And we can obviously extract cash back in the day, although most of us are tap and go people. And then that leads into goods and services that we're providing in terms of that regular spending. The same applies for our bills and how we operate with the credit card. So you can see again, we pay that on credit. That potentially gives us a 55-day interest-free period, which allows us, or up to 55 days I should say, which allows that money to sit in the offset account, which is saving us interest, or sitting in our savings account, which is then obviously making us some further income. We've got the direct debit payments also going out to those people. So depending on the service fees and charges, it may sometimes be better to pay a direct debit as opposed to obviously using the credit card. So if the fees are more expensive here than the savings that you make, and in some cases, some companies might give you a 5% discount if you pay in full. And so that might be an argument to obviously use direct debits. And then we come down into the loan jar and we can see all of those loans being regularly taken from that primary account in our sort of virtual jar system. And then we've got the provisioning jar. In some cases you can use credit card, you can also make direct payments if you want to, and that also comes down to these goods and services area. So this is an essential structure that we sort of govern our rules by. The other thing we need to understand, remember we talked about application and how we were going to put all these resources together. So under the Moorr platform, what we also have done, and when we wrote the original best-selling book, so remember this is the Make Money Simple again, which is the rules-based book. So if you haven't already got a copy of that, check that out. You will be able to get a copy from the website and also from the Moorr platform. So if you haven't already got that, this is effectively the manual. Now inside this manual, we talked about these things being items. So what we mean by that is we have categories at the top, then we have items, and then ultimately we've now got something called cards. Okay, so this is new. So this is part of MoneySMARTS 2.0. So what we're doing here is under this rules-based system, you can set up the items and then you can allocate cards to that. Now, what's a great example? Well, let's say we want to have in terms of provisioning jar. So my son plays lots of basketball. And so with Harry's basketball, I can potentially say, here's a budget that I've set up for 12 months of his basketball. So he's got weekend recreational basketball, he's got rep basketball, he's got training and development. So he's got all these different costs. So what I can do is, obviously under the expense item called recreational hobbies, I can then say, well, I'm going to set up a card that says Harry's basketball. And so I can now track all of that money into Harry's basketball, and it will feed up into the item, which is recreational hobbies, and then it will feed up into the category, which is called expenditure. And that is what we've built since writing the book and since upgrading into the Moorr platform and building MoneySMARTS 2.0. We now have this additional functionality that allows us to have multiple cards, and that gives you that individuality that you're looking for. So you can tailor anything to your needs when it comes to this card system, but the items layer is fixed. So those items in terms of the income, expenditure items, borrowing items, and the asset items, they are all fixed. And so we get to control that, and that helps us with the rules in making sure that you're not going crazy or sort of getting yourself overcomplicated in the overall system. So that is the flow of money as it works inside the MoneySMARTS system inside the Moorr platform. So you can see it really is starting to come together. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about is how do we get set up and implement this so we can go for gold.